Okay, so here's another video. Surprise, surprise. And I want to talk about the idea of manipulation. Usually manipulation seems to be, I don't know, I'm not really sure what most people think, but that's not the point. It's not about generalization. Everybody sees it differently. But for me, manipulation is not just, being the subtle, sort of like quiet and being devious and, you know, um, it's just manipulation. It's like you're trying to go around something that you can't go around, right? So a lot of it stems from a self. For me, it's a self of like powerlessness, where it's like because I feel like I can't control it. So where does that come from, right? Because it's like, well, then you can't control it. So what do? Don't take that road. But at the same time, sometimes we feel like we're stuck in a road and we have to take that road anyways, right? So one of the things that I find is I don't reveal anything, and sometimes not revealing anything, which ties into an old video of mine, which is like about communication, about not revealing anything. And maybe that's why some people don't say anything, because they don't know how to respond. To me, when I see that, and this is where the ego comes in, I sense that the ego is going like, to me that's a form of manipulation, but not necessarily like intentional manipulation, because it's like, so what happens is like the ego wants to retaliate and then manipulate and just go, hide the emotions or not reveal anything or joke about it, right? It's not necessarily healthy, but it is part of the learning process where what is manipulation? How can we use manipulation so that it's not necessarily manipulation? If I were to look into the word manipulate, let's go into Edem Online right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to come across something like the word hand. I remember it being like related to the word hand, manus, right? Or is it, yeah, something like that. So manipulation comes from to handle skillfully by hand. That's in 1827. It's a back formation of the word manipulation. 1730, a method of digging ore, from French manipulation, manipule, handful, right? Okay, so a pharmacist's measure, from Latin manipulus. So a handful, sheaf, bundle, from manus, hand, and root, and the other one is blere, to fill. So to fill with your hand. So basically it's a lot to do with control. If you get a sense of it, like it feels like you're just going, you're doing this. It's almost like you're managing, handling and managing, right? But handling and managing does stem. It has, it's connected to also like power, because we want to control things, right? So manipulation stems from control, just like I said earlier. So I was right about the emotions. Great, yay. Okay, so there's no doubt that that's why it came from that. That's why it's there. So the thing about it is because of the whole power thing, because of the way the ego works, is that it wants to be in control. It wants to control. It wants to control. It wants to control because it's afraid, right? And one of the things I wrote down here from my notes here is that we don't like being told what to do, yet we want to be told what to do. How this ties into manipulation, I feel, is that it's almost like we're being passive-aggressive about control. That's weird, right? But passive-aggressive is more manipulative than being aggressive and or passive. Because being passive-aggressive, I'm not saying don't be passive-aggressive, but sometimes some people get into passive-aggressiveness, like my mom does that. Because we don't know how to go around it. We feel like we don't have control. So what I do now with my mom is I actually use, in a way I use a tactic or strategy or tactic or of manipulation itself, which is like I create my own boundaries. I own my emotions. So it goes back to owning your emotions. I say like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that right now. You do what you want to do. I don't want to do that. I'm going to say right now exactly what it is, and you do what you want to do and see how it goes, okay? So, in a way, there's a bit of manipulation there because of my tone of voice, But I don't say it that way, actually, Mom. I just go straight forward and say, no, I don't want to do that. So it comes off as if I were hearing that from other people. For me, my reaction to that, or at least the ego's reaction to that, would be like, oh, they're not with me, so it feels like they're against me. Usually we go into that direction, right? We head towards that. It's an automatic thing for a lot of us to, if they're not with me, they must be against me. That's not true. Same thing in the previous video that I posted, that when it's about communication, it's about this whole thing, like if they're not responding, therefore that they're not with you. That's not necessarily true. Whether they're with you or against you has nothing to do with their lack of response, their lack of not knowing how to respond, their response that could be seen or deemed as manipulative or uncertain or imprecise or unclear or whatever it is, right? Because as Eckhart puts it, we tend to go in towards the negative. It's almost like a lot of humans, we tend to get into this negative thoughts right away. Right? What if this is? What if I don't get this? Maybe this. But all this stems from practice and retraining both the conscious and the subconscious. We cannot really train the subconscious because the subconscious is the subconscious. It's automatic. It's to part of our core being as in this body. So it carries with it memories from the past and past lives and all that stuff. For me, at least, that's how it is. So we cannot manipulate that stuff. Funny how I'm using the word manipulate. Yeah, we can't manipulate, we can't control it, we can't change it, we can't train it. So when it comes to the subconscious, we have to go into the emotions. That's when we get to use the emotions and go into the memory, go into inner child stuff. There are people out there who do inner child healing. I'm not sure if I do that myself. We'll see. I'm still learning things about that for myself, healing my inner child. The other part, though, is the conscious part of the brain, which is something we can train. So we have, like, people are used to hearing like affirmations and all those things, but I feel like they have to be connected. So when we do the inner child stuff, when we do shadow work, we go into the memory from the emotion that we're feeling, and go into the memory and then healing what that child wants and actually adhering to that and following exactly what that inner child of us wants, so that when we bring ourselves back into the adult form, into the surface, into the present moment, then we start to realize, that memory is it's changed, right? It ties into one of my coaches, he's Aaron Dowdy. He talks about Goddard, Stephen, whatever, Neville Goddard. He talks about the, what is that one? Revisioning process or something. So that's basically what it is. And it's worked for me. So I think that it's starting to work. I still don't know the actual, like, where I am at, to be honest. So I'm not sure if I can, share with you exactly how it's working, but it is working because I've been doing this for years. I started shadow work about 10 years ago, and I'm starting to do this now, where I'm really not only practicing awareness, but also like healing the inner child. So it's kind of, there's a connection that's happening now, where it's like, as I'm doing that, I'm bringing it to the surface, right? There's a subconscious stuff, there's a memory from the emotions, it starts with the emotions, and then being aware of it and seeing it into the mind and seeing it through the eye of the mind and all that stuff, and inner child stuff and shadow work and all that stuff, and continuous work. Because it's kind of like you're eating. It's kind of like food, right? Healing doesn't happen just because you put a Band-Aid on it. Healing doesn't happen just because you drink water. The body is in consistent evolution, and evolution is ongoing, or rather, growth is ongoing. Evolution is just the whole picture, right? Well, scientifically speaking, apparently there's a difference between adaptation and evolution. The point is that it changes. Okay, so that means it's always going to happen. It's going to happen. It's always going to, something's always going to grow, and you're always like shedding new skin, shedding the old skin, getting new skin. It's just how it is, right? Just like food, you always need to replenish your body. As the food you consume it becomes a part of you. The same thing with the energies you have, the same thing with the changes you go through, the same thing with the healing that you, same thing with all the things you do, everything. So it's not just like a one-time thing, right? So really, it boils down to experience. Experience it, right? This kind of ties in with the whole, like, you can't pour, well, not really, it doesn't tie in with this one. I was going to say something else, but that's fine. So, right, so manipulation can be done in many ways where it's not necessarily going to hurt anyone. I mean, we're talking like, we think it's not going to hurt someone, but it actually is. Like, like, yeah, you did okay, but, or like, I'm sorry, but I don't mean to hurt you, but, or there's other things, like more subtle things, like, it's okay that you're stupid, don't worry about that. That's manipulation right there, right? It's like, right? Now where a lot of people are awakening and they realize, like, ooh, cannot be manipulated anymore. However, there's a gift to manipulation, which ties into its historical or etymological meaning, which is to handle and manage. Handle and manage persons, but in this case are objects. But instead of handling and managing objects or people or things or everything else, handle or manage the emotions. That's what it is. Manipulation can be an inward process. So that way you're like, okay, the ego wants this. It wants separation. It wants to believe that it's like, it's one thing to say that, also there's one thing to also say, like, we must be united. The truth is, we are all connected. We're all one. It's one thing to go jump into the esoteric stuff, but it's another thing to go like, well, how the fuck do you apply that to real life? Well, that's one thing. When you sense that something doesn't feel right, trust that. Trust the intuition. Trust the instinct as well. The instinct is pretty powerful. Trust that and say, like, okay, and just make sort of like your own little mini mantras and say, like, or not really mantras, like sort of like your own little personal slogans, if you will, of what you want to say for how you want to say. Well, I'm not, for example, like I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm not ready for it because I feel off right now about it. Okay, so I need you to give me space, and I'm going to go away, and I'm going to do this right now. So I can't respond. So that's owning it, right? Because you're aware, you start to become aware that it's like, oh, that's what I'm feeling right now. And then what is the sensation? Then you process it when you're away, when you're in times of, like, when you're meditating, or when you're in the process of, like, processing it. You need to process it. You manage and handle those emotions, so you don't let others handle and manage you and your emotions and what your experiences are. So there's that gift of manipulation. So that's one of the things I noticed, and it came to me today. I was like, wow, that's awesome. So that also means having those boundaries. That's part of having boundaries and saying, like, you know what, I'm not dealing with this right now. But at least that's a form of communication. Ties in back to an old video that I mentioned just several minutes ago, that yes, when people don't know how to communicate, or if you feel you cannot communicate exactly, instead of just running away, that's because running away versus taking time away from is obviously different, right? So you don't want to run away from that. You want to face it, but you have to face it in the way you know how at any given moment, and your level of consciousness, meaning your level of experience of what that is. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.